Welcome back to the On the Ball podcast. This is episode 119 of the show, and we are once again joined by Angus Rowe. How are you, mate?
Bit flat after the weekend, mate. I'm all right now. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thanks. Actually, can't lie, I forgot about that. The Easter weekend was bloody it was a long one. The round went for
A lot of chocolate
like
in.
5 days. Yeah, a lot of weight gained. But yeah, sadly, not a great weekend for some teams, your team included. But we'll get into that in a little bit. We were just talking about next round and how hectic it is. But right now, I think pretty much any round the AFL stages is going to be hectic because there's just so many teams that are unpredictable, and there's a lot of teams that could beat anyone on their day. So it's an exciting time in the AFL at the moment. And yeah, a lot of good footy being played. Some huge blowouts, though, it has to be said, over the weekend, which was a bit weird. But then there are also some, there was a buzzer beater and stuff like that. So it's all over the joint at the moment, but we'd love to see it. Bags being kicked as well, which I know a lot of people are enjoying seeing, and not from the regulars, not from
the regulars,
not from Josh Kennedy, not from Jeremy Cameron, from Harry Mackay and Josh Bruce. So that's interesting. But winners and losers, mate. We may as well get into it. Who are the big winners for you coming out of round 3 of the AFL?
Well, just about the third week in a row, I think the biggest winners are the Swans. They toppled over Tigers at the G, who are basically a formidable task, and they just beat them playing Richmond style of footy. I think John Long might put it. They also had their third Rising Star nomination in a row, with Chad Warner getting it. So, yeah, they were massive winners on the weekend. They just showed that, hypothetically, if they got to September, they could beat Richmond at the G. So, another big winners were obviously Lions, had that big debacle with the COVID and everything, was sort of stranded in Melbourne and got the win over Collingwood. They deserved to last week as well, but, who could have scripted Zach Bailey to kick the winning goal after last week's occurrences? I mean, you could not have scripted that any better. The Bombers, obviously, great winners this weekend, but enough said. And the Eagles obviously put in a masterclass against I think the flag favourites, Port Adelaide, they were.
Yeah, incredible. There were some huge weekends from some teams who we may not have been expecting it from, but we probably should start to expect it from Sydney now. They are 3-0. They've had an incredible start. They beat Richmond pretty much in most areas of the ground. I think every stat they won except for like tackles and pressure acts, which is pretty impossible to beat Richmond at. They had 62 inside 50s to 47, which is pretty dominant when it comes to AFL. And I was looking at some of their future fixtures. They've got Essendon, then they've got GWS, and then they've got the Gold Coast. So the way those three teams are playing, Essendon obviously had a good win on the weekend, but if we look back around to how we thought those three teams were playing, yeah, they could definitely be 6-0. And from 6-0, I don't think anyone's predicting them to miss finals. I assume they've got some tougher games coming up after that because they have they did play Brisbane and they have played Richmond, so it's not like they've had a soft draw, but Essendon, GWS and Gold Coast is a soft run, but yeah, they look like they're, like right now, it's probably even odds of going 6-0, if not in their favour, which is just incredible.
I'd say it's in their favour.
Yeah, I think people would. Where were we predicting them preseason? Like 15th, 16th?
I think everyone had them as a sort of iffy team in that sort of 10th to 16th range.
Yeah.
That sort of stereotypical. We'll give them a couple more years with their young talent, but blimey, their young talent's awesome.
Yeah.
Just blowing everyone away.
Yeah, this week, Buddy comes back into the side after being rested, and Rowbottom also comes back after a niggle he picked up in round 1. So they're somehow only going to get better. So yeah, incredible start from Longmire and his side. I actually thought, I think I talked about it in the preview to last season. I thought John Longmire was under a bit of pressure, but I think he showed how good of a coach he is with how fast that rebuild has taken place, and the complaints about the Sydney Swans Academy has already started, which is unsurprising. But anyway, and yeah, you touched on the West Coast Eagles. I think they're another huge winner coming out of it. The two teams they beat, Port and Richmond, are playing against each other this week, which is an absolute blockbuster, but we'll talk about that at the end of the potty. But yeah, West Coast, they've had a pretty incredible start to the season, really. They have had a loss, but it was to the Dogs by 7 points at Marvel, which after that North result, looks like a pretty good performance from West Coast. They
Yeah.
pretty comfortably dispatched of Gold Coast as well in round one. And this is all with injuries in their midfield. Yo's not playing. Shuey, I think, was it his first game back or something like that on the
His
weekend.
first game back, and now he's out again for about a month. Yeah.
Yeah, so they're having issues in that middle getting people on the park, but their forward line's killing it. Their back line looks like the best in the comp, and Nick Nat's having an awesome start to the year as well. They won the clearance battle against Port 41-27, which is pretty good. I think Port's right up there with the clearances in the last couple seasons. Blokes like Boak and Wines are usually freakish.
And Willem Drew.
Yeah, my lookalike Willem Drew. And yeah, they kicked 16 goals, 12 behind, so you could have argued they should have won by more. If it wasn't for a fourth quarter, well, it wasn't a comeback, but junk time scoring from Port, yeah, it could have been a 50 plus, like 70 marginal. I don't know what the margin ended up being, but it could have been a lot bigger than it was. And in the next few weeks, they've got St Kilda and Marvel, which the bookies are suggesting is an absolute sitter. And I haven't watched St Kilda's last couple games too in depthly, but like that on paper, that's a tough game. St Kilda Marvel. I know you might think otherwise after watching the last 8 quarters of footy, and then they've also got the Cats in 2 weeks at the category. But after that, they've got a really easy stretch of fixtures for about 5 or 6 weeks. So if they keep this form up, they could easily have only 1 or 2 losses come like round 10, and they'll be in a prime position to host a home final in September, which would be pretty tough for any opposition to go over there and win in September. So yeah, beautiful starts from those two teams. Essendon, I want you to talk, like I know it's tough for you to talk about it because St Kilda, obviously on the other side of that coin, didn't have a great game. But what happened with the Essendon game? I was playing cricket, so I didn't see it. But did they play well, or did St Kilda just play awful?
Honestly, I think it was definitely a balance of St Kilda. It wasn't so much playing bad. Well, it was obviously playing bad, but it was more just not trying and just lack of effort and heart, which, it allowed Essendon to flourish and allowed, players like Parrish and whatnot to sort of get these 35 disposal games. And obviously, they've got the talent, as they showed on the weekend, to do so. But I think we really let them just take advantage of us and really let them show what they can do when granted the opportunity. So, yeah, honestly, as much as I'd love to sit here and say that, we tried hard, we really battled it out, and we made them perform to their best. We really let them dominate us, and that's no downer on Essendon. They played very, very well. But look, we played. I'm putting North obviously as the bottom performer this week. Saints are 17th. I'm putting us there, so which is I'm sure everyone else would be as well. So it honestly wasn't hard for Essendon to perform the way they did, but yeah, look, credit to them, they smashed us, and it was a well-deserved victory for them.
Yeah, do you think it's real panic time for St Kilda, or do you think finals are still well and truly on the cards?
I wouldn't say well and truly on the cards. I will wait until we get to my ladder predictions, but this first month or like the first 4 weeks for the Saints, we needed or first 3 weeks we needed at least 2 wins because GWS, Melbourne, and Essendon, you want as a top 8/top 4 touted team, you need at least 2 wins from those games. And the 2 losses that eventuated weren't bad skill; they were bad heart and bad. It was just selfishness. It wasn't playing for the jumper or anything, which is, in an essence, nearly worse. We've seen what's happened to GWS. They've got abundance of skill, but, it's almost like selfish, not really playing for the jumper and whatnot. So, not many people really want to be there given the amount of people that leave. So it's almost harder to turn around a mental defect in your game. Just because the loss after loss due to lack of efforts really gets down on your players. So, there's nowhere to hide this weekend. We're playing West Coast, and then we're playing Richmond the week after, and then I think Port the week after that. So there's genuinely nowhere to hide. Look, if we can get 1 win out of those games, honestly, I'm still, cross my fingers for finals. If we're 1-5, it's pretty bloody hard to recover from finals, especially given we've got the toughest fixture in the comp this year. So, um, look, at the moment, my gut, unfortunately, is starting to tell me no. But I still, we've, as we saw last year, we've got the talent, the ability to make the eight. So all we've just got to do is, we need Steely to rev up the troops. We need a few of the boys to enjoy a trip to the Bell or something just to get the camaraderie back and just show a bit of heart and passion. So, and, not letting blokes from the opposition streaming, or not even streaming, just jogging through the ground and into the forward 50 and just having free marks and free players everywhere. We need to show a bit of effort and just grind it out for those 2 or 3 hours, because those 2 and 3 hours are what these players are paid to do. So, look, if we can turn around, I wouldn't mind a loss this weekend as long as we just showed some effort, because the weekend's effort was appalling. It was the first time I've turned off a Saints game, and sorry to prattle on, but it's the first time I've turned off a Saints game, in maybe 3 years or something. I turned it off midway through the second quarter because we were getting smashed by like 8, 9, 10 goals, but it was more the fact that we just weren't trying. And like I even pointed out Jack Steele was jogging at one point in just the first quarter after. I think it was Mason Redmond who strolled into the 50 and I think kicked a goal, and still was only a couple of meters away. Credit to him, he was our only player on the day. But it just goes to show that we just did not try. It wasn't it was a lack of skill to a degree, but we at the end of the day, we just didn't try, and it wasn't the effort there. So yeah, that's it. That's my summary.
Yeah, I can feel your frustration, and I saw Warney outraged on Twitter as well. He's not happy with it, but I guess some positives coming out of, well, not the weekend, but the week. Paddy Ryder's back to training. Should be, I don't know if he's playing this week, but it should be back soon.
Not yet.
Yeah, and Rowan Marshall can't be far away either.
Might be this week, but might be next week.
Yeah, and then one good thing, I guess, is now in the next 3 weeks, you're pretty much going to be heavy underdogs like you are this week against West Coast. So
yes.
I think the expectation, which maybe played a part in this disappointing last 2 weeks, is almost completely gone again. So it's almost three hits, but like you said, you don't want to be 1 and 5, trying to go for that top 8. So hopefully they can turn it around and cause a few upsets over the next 2 to 3 weeks. But yeah, you mentioned it before, the 18th worst, I guess 18th best, top worst performer of the week. I don't want to harp on about them too much this year because everyone knows they're going to be pretty average, but the Kangaroos, you can't lose by 128 points. I'm sorry. And
let Josh Bruce get 10 on you.
Yeah, you can't lose by that and expect not to be roasted. Yeah, look, they let the Dogs go at 70% efficiency inside 50, which is pretty insane. I was looking at some of the other games around the competition, and I don't know what the league average is usually, but most of the other games I saw, it was between 40 to 55. So they were going in at 70%. And when I was watching in the last part of the third quarter and the fourth quarter, legit every time they went in, it was a goal. They were just strolling in, finding an open man, somehow kicking a goal. It just looked like there was no one. If I was going to guess, I would have guessed it was 18 versus 12. But the Kangaroos were just rubbish. They won the hitouts, but that 34 to 17, but they lost the clearances 37 to 24. So I don't know if that's down to Goldie just tapping it to anyone, or the midfield just not reading his taps, or just shirking it when they get the ball. But that's pretty poor when you're getting first use like that. And especially North, yes, they're not a great team, and the Dogs midfield's insane, but the North contested ball winners they're all right. Jed Anderson's good. Ben Cunnington made a comeback. Jai Simpkins, a highly touted player. So you shouldn't be getting dominated in the clearances when you get first use like that. They also lost in contested possessions 150 to 102. So that's pretty poor. But they've got Adelaide this week, which I think will be a pretty big test. It's a home game for them. Adelaide are heavy favourites going into it after obviously a promising start to their season. And if they let Adelaide walk all over them, it's going to be a very, very long year for North Melbourne supporters. So they need a big showing this week. Otherwise, I don't really know how you can draw any positives from it if they get pumped by Adelaide. So, yeah, do you think the Kangas could put up some fight against the Crows, or do you think they're just completely rubbish?
Well, I mean, if we've learned anything from this year and last year, it's that on any given day, any team can beat anyone. So, yeah, I expect a bit of fight from North. I think when it got to the stages where North were like, yeah, this is going to be over 100 points at the weekend. They, almost just were just praying for the game to be over. Hence, players were strolling in. North just wanted the game to be over. They didn't really care, obviously. It was like an under nines game, just like 100-0 back in the day. It was just domination where you're just shivering cold at like 9:30 a.m. in the forward pocket. You haven't seen the ball for about three quarters. You just want it to be over. I think that was a similar mindset to the Kangas on the weekend. No, I expect them to show a bit of fight. I do still think the Crows will win, obviously, but the Crows won't have their Adelaide home ground, which I think is actually a really big advantage, which is what spurred them on the weekend against Gold Coast. So, maybe North can turn the table and sort of use that to spur them on because they're obviously going to have the home crowd advantage. I think their fans are going to get up and about for this game because it is probably their first sort of winnable game for the year. But, yeah, it does sort of come down to the impact that Tex has because he is the main goal kicker in the whole match, basically. If you can keep Tex to under, it's a tough ask, but under like 3 goals, then, North are well and truly in it. But, if you let Tex get off the handle, have 20 odd touches and kick 4+ like he's done the last 3 weeks, I don't see any way the North are going to win it. They don't really have any attack up forward. Their midfield gets smashed every week. I think Anderson's out again this week with injury. And, yeah, their back line is a bit under duress at the moment. So, no, I still see the Crows winning it. I do see North putting up probably similar to the amount of fight they showed in round 1 against Port. I think it was round 1 or round 2. So fingers crossed they can deliver because it is going to be an interesting game to watch. If it was Adelaide Oval, you'd say the Crows by like 7 or 8 goals. But I do believe in this sort of home crowd spurring on advantage, which is why I'm intrigued to see how North play with it. You never know. Tommy Powell could come out and have 50 touches like he did in his junior days, and anything's possible in the comp at the moment. So, yeah, fingers crossed to see what happens. Fingers crossed for North Melbourne, and hopefully a close game occurs.
Yeah, and I also need the Kangaroos to step up because if they're going to keep losing by 128 points, Jack Zeeble is going to average 180 Supercoach points, and I bloody don't have him.
Don't have him. Oh,
so,
no.
Yeah, if they could fix that, because I reckon if they become a good team, he'll stop getting the ball, and all of a sudden I'll be a genius for not having him. But yeah, so if you don't mind doing that, Kangaroos, that'd be greatly appreciated. Hopefully, some of their fans get out there. It's not the biggest fan base, but as you said, this is a winnable game for them. So, and they do have some winnable games in their schedule. I know they play Essendon in a couple of weeks. They also play Hawthorn, and then they play Adelaide and Essendon at the back end of the year as well. So, like, they need to step up and win these types of games, unless they could be looking at a 0-win season. But you never know.
It never happens, does it? 0 wins, really? It just never happens.
They can't lose to Essendon twice and the Adelaide twice. It won't happen, I don't reckon.
No,
they've got to win one of those games. And another loser I want to mention, apart from my Supercoach team, I've had a bloody awful start to the year. It's the Gold Coast Suns.
Janus.
Yeah, Hugh Janus is in struggle street. But yeah, the Gold Coast Suns, I reckon they've had a pretty poor start. I think they're flying under the radar a little bit in terms of poor performance because they haven't been getting smashed. So I think people are pretty okay with how they're going. Yeah, they did dispatch North in round 2, but I'm expecting a little bit more from the Suns this year from what they've shown us, especially in round 1 and round 3. They lost to Adelaide, which we talked about just before. Their home ground advantage is huge, but they up forward, they kicked 12 goals, 13 behinds, which was really the main difference between the teams. If you actually look at the stats, the Gold Coast Suns pretty much won all the key indicators, and it was just that kicking that really cost them. So that's something they've got to sort out this week. Otherwise,
the Tex factor.
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, I think Stewie Jew could be under a little bit of pressure because he has been there for a little while now. The signs they showed last year was very promising, especially after the resumption, after lockdown. But it looks like they've almost stagnated a little bit in the back end of last year and the start of this season. So they've got some big weeks coming up for, Stewie Jew, but also the whole side because they don't want to do what GWS did and just hit a ceiling and then
Mm.
never go on with what everyone was expecting them to go on with and become like a dynasty. They want to keep going and reach those heights. So, hopefully for the Suns they bounce back because I do like them as a side. But yeah, bit of a disappointing loss to Adelaide, I have to say. Any other losers you want to touch on?
I've got two sides written down. It's one of them is Port, but it's more of just like I know this segment is just a loser for the week, but I think it's generally just a 1 week sort of thing for them. They just sort of showed that they. I don't want to say weak when they play away from home, but they're not the side they are. I think when they play away from home, or especially not many teams are when they play not just against the Eagles. Let's be real. But you need to be more competitive than that. I mean, the game, it didn't, it wasn't a 4 goal margin game, if that makes sense, which is what the final margin was. It was a 8, 9, 10 goal margin. Port never ever got going at the start of the game. I remember I backed in Port with the line. I actually tipped Port, and I was like, shit, what have I done here? Because they were 5 goals down. Like, not much time at all. So I think they'll put up obviously a much better fight against Richmond this week. They're hosting them at Adelaide Oval, which is going to be a very tough ask for Richmond. So I'm once again very intrigued to see what happens in that game. But yeah, obviously in front of Adelaide Oval, I think they're going to get their sort of mojo back. Every team's got to play at Optus Stadium against West Coast. Well, most teams do. So it's a task that every team is faced with and usually come out with a depleting loss. The other team I've got there is GWS. They're now 0-3 off their 17th. For a list that has so much talent, and for them to be lower than like Adelaide, for example, is just not where they want to be for a side that played in the flag 2 years ago. They've got, like I said, an abundance of talent. They've got players like Toby Green, Josh Kelly, Nick Haynes is like an awesome spine. And, to be 17th, staring down the barrel of a bottom 4 finish, believe it or not, from the way they're going right now, it's pretty hard to believe because I don't think anyone ever saw it coming. But, they're a massive loser for me this week. They obviously had a chance to pinch a win against the D's, but sort of fell apart in that final quarter. The D's just overran them. Much better structure and ball movement from the D's. I watched the last quarter of that game, and it was really just a Toby Green show for the Giants. The Giants are big losers for me, and it's tough to watch them at the moment because of how much talent you want them to be good. Because I'm sure all the fans in the AFL in 2019 were barracking for GWS in that final. They really needed them to win wanted them to win because everyone hates Richmond. So to see them go this poorly now, it is kind of hard to watch. So it's not great signs for the Giants at the moment. I have a question for you, Ham. How long do you reckon Leon Cameron's going to last?
Yeah, I don't think it's much longer. The injuries they suffered.
It's going to be this season.
Yeah, he's not coaching in 2022. I think that's almost factual at this point. It's just a matter of whether he lasts to the end of the year or not. Because, I think we can rule them out of finals. I think those injuries they suffered on Sunday, I think it was, as put a line through them, to be honest, especially when teams like Sydney and Melbourne have started so well, who were in a similar sort of bracket to them coming into the year. Nick Haynes isn't playing as well as he normally does. Josh Kelly looks like, compared to Josh Kelly of 2018 and 19, don't even know who this bloke is. Toby Green's about the only one who's pulling his weight at the moment, and I guess Matty Flynn's having
And Isaac Cumming.
Isaac Cumming is playing well half back. Matty Flynn's having a crack in the ruck, but that's about it at the moment. Jake Riccardi does come back, so I guess that's something to watch out for from a Giants fan.
Gamer, I think.
Point of view, but Leon Cameron at this point, I think, I don't know where he's from originally, but I think wherever he's from, he should start to look at housing prices because, I think he's going to be out of there pretty quick. Well, if I had to make a prediction, is there much point sacking him mid-season? I don't know. After watching the documentary, I don't like him. I don't like his coaching.
Really?
I thought he just gets real angry. Like, if you look at Adam Simpson and, like, Dimmer, they're very reserved. Like, they know when they're very composed, even in the pressure moments. Like they always know how to calm the boys down as well and deliver their
Yeah.
message clearly. Where Leon Cameron kind of just screams. So I'm not the biggest fan. So I'm going to predict he gets sacked in about round 12. But who knows if he'll even get that far? Do you reckon he'll get sacked before the end of the year, or?
Uh yes. If they continue this form, then yes. I don't see them. They've got Collingwood, then they've got Sydney. So those are two, like I said, winnable games. But they're both teams that have obviously ahead of them, especially Sydney. So look, if they're 0-5, then I think it's only a matter of days/weeks, probably weeks. But yeah, I see it as a sort of mid-season thing, or late season thing. Once if you're in finals, if they bounce back and get a few wins and stuff, obviously they're not going to sack him if they're chance of finals contention. So I think it's once they've ruled out of finals, I think the question is going to be asked. I don't think they'll do it before that happens, to be honest. But I could well and truly be proven wrong if they're 0-5 and 0-6. I don't know if you remember the first episode of the documentary, but even just some of their methods by their plays were just a bit. I'm trying to think for a better word than obscure. I think it was Stephen Cornelio, got the captaincy role, and like his first thing to the group was like this weird little
that was
wooden,
so weird.
almost child's play set about we want to get from here to here to here. I don't know. I was sort of watching that, just thinking like, I'm not sure teams like Richmond would be doing this, and if they were, they wouldn't be getting the same sort of reception because no one was really. Everyone was just a bit like, this is really random. They didn't get a really positive reception, so I don't know if that's just sums up some of the things going on over at that joint. But it's a bit of a strange place. I'm starting to get a gauge of how they're going, the Giants. It's odd. It's odd times.
Yeah, whoever at Amazon decided to follow Sloan and Cornelio, they've done Cornelio dirty because I have to say, everyone leads in their own way. I've played under many different captains in sport, but who have different types of leadership. But Jesus Christ, if you compare Cornelio to Sloan, you just wonder like, how is this bloke even selected as captain? But sadly, he don't want to crap on him too much because he is sadly was in a moon boot after the game on Sunday. It looks set to be out for a long time, so that sucks because obviously he's one of their best players when he's in form, which hasn't been for a while now. But I guess we get to see the likes of Tom Green and stuff get more of a role, which could be interesting. But yeah, I have no idea how they've wasted the generation of talent they had, and you look at them all just killing it elsewhere in the competition, and you just think what could have been. But anyway, I think that's enough about GWS. It's a sad story, and sorry, Leon Cameron, but you definitely have an expiry date coming up pretty soon. So, Rowey, your top 8 prediction, mate. What are your changes for this round?
Oh boy, I'm just going to reel it off the top 8. I think that's what we're doing every week. I've got. As the weeks go on, my top 4 gets sort of less and less secure, as I guess it was going to happen. But it's almost like, how every year, there's like a dominant team or two. I think last year was Geelong and Richmond and Port Adelaide, with a dominant 3, and the Lions up there as well. This year, I think with every round that goes by, there's one less team that goes from that dominant stage to that very good stage. And it's gone to the point where I don't think there's a dominant team anymore in the comp, which is awesome, I think. I hate having these sort of monopoly things like in the Premier League where it's just a dominant team and everything. Like, it's great that now the likes of Geelong and Port and Richmond and everything. Richmond got touched up on the weekend by a team that played a similar style to them. So now I'm really sort of excited to see what teams do against them now, whether they adopt Sydney's method and is this how you beat Richmond? Geelong haven't been nowhere near as good as we thought they were going to be this year. Their slow ball movement isn't consistent with the rules that have come into place, which is awesome because, you don't want a team that's got the class of Geelong that's dominating teams every week because of the talent on their list. Brisbane just, lack of, I think, experience or, I think that their list is young in places, their bottom 6 in game day is often pretty weak and stuff like that. And Port, obviously, can't travel as well as maybe we thought they could, or maybe that's just the West Coast thing. So at the moment, I've got Geelong in one still, unfortunately, but I'm a lot less confident or secure with having them in that number one spot, which is great. I love the fact that it's very open. Port, I've got a number two, just because the only downer I think I've got, or most people have got, is the fact of their travel. I guess on the weekend it showed that they were nowhere near as good as they are at Adelaide Oval on the weekend, but you can easily turn that around in your next away game. Three, I've got Richmond. I still think they'll be a top four team, but this is where it changes. I've got the Dogs in at four now. The power of their midfield is just obviously I think it's the best midfield in the comp by a mile. And now with the likes of, I know it was against North, but the likes of Bruce and Norton starting to lift and everything is exactly what they needed. And you throw English in there, and that's a formidable attack. I've now got the Eagles in at five because of just how strong their list is. They don't really have a weakness. Yes, it's a bit aging and they are getting a few injuries, but they've shown and they've proven that they can push past that. With the likes of Tim Kelly stepping up when the midfield gets a bit injury prone and whatnot. I've got them at five, defying what I said about them all preseason. Bloody hell, I actually had them finishing like 12th or 13th at one point because I thought, slowness and injuries get the better of them, but I was clearly wrong. I've got the line slipping down to sixth, just because they're not. I don't think they're as strong as many people think they are. I don't think they've got a premiership winning team at the moment. Now that you can tag Lockie Neal very easily, that leaves the likes of Jared Lyons, who isn't a massively damaging player, Dane Zorko, who's old and has to play stints in the forward line, Zach Bailey, who's a gun but still probably too young. I don't think their team has as much firepower as maybe many other teams do. Hugh McCluggage is a beast, but he's outside and inside, more so outside. So I don't know. I've got him at sixth, Melbourne at seventh, but Sydney at eighth, and I'm interchanging both of them, and I'm not sure. Melbourne are going to get Ben Brown back soon, and these new rules really suit him because they just put it in front of his hands. And these one-on-one contests are great for him to allow him to sort of push off his opponent and do that. And then obviously Sydney, if they go 5-0, I've got that. They're obviously going to go a lot better than eighth. I put them in at eighth before I saw their fixture coming up and realised they can have a serious chance of being 5-0. So, it's a lottery. It's flip of the coin between seventh and eighth for Melbourne and Sydney at the moment for me. And then just missing out, obviously, Carlton Pies and unfortunately my mob St Kilda.
Sad. I respect that you've taken them out, but that's sad stuff. It's going to be an exciting race for those positions. I know we're only in round 3, but there's already so many teams that look like they can make finals. Like, to think that you would have St Kilda outside of your top 8 after round 3, It shows how good the season's been so far. But I actually agree with your Brisbane call. I don't think they're actually that good. If you take Harris Andrews out of that team, I don't even think they're a top 8 side. Like, he saves them on so many occasions. But anyway, I guess good on them for having Harris Andrews. But all right, time for our top 5 lists. This week we are going. I saw a clickbait article. I think it was from Mitch Clear or something on the AFL website saying, was Fogarty the biggest bargain in trade period history or something like that for Carlton after his impressive game on Sunday. So I thought it would be a good day to talk about the top 5 biggest bargains in trade periods. We are only doing the last 5 trade periods because I only moved to Melbourne in 2015, so I don't know much about footy before that, but also Siebes just scrolling through 20 years of trade periods. But all right, you start us off, mate. 5-1. Which trades do you think are the biggest bargains in history?
All right, so going for number 5, this is last 5 years. Obviously, I've got, I can't not put him in there. I've got Lockie Neal, Brownlow winner. And I've said straight away you'd think bargain because you've done a trade for a Brownlow winner. So I think they originally gave up sort of pick 6 and 19, and there was a couple of later exchanges. The reason I don't have him higher is because that pick 6 was in the Super Draft, and I'm talking about the draft with Walsh, Lukosius, Rankin, the Kings, Baslenka.
Yeah.
So if the Lions chose not to get Neil, which, you can't not pass up a player of Neil's caliber, and he's only gotten better since he moved. But, they would have been able to grab someone from that super draft, and every player in that top 8 looks like they're going to be an absolute star. It's the first time I've seen such it's the first time I've seen like a top 8 in the draft where everyone is good. There's usually some baker around picks 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. I think
Was that Rosie
I think
as well?
Yeah, Rosie in at
Butters
5. Butters was later. He was picked 12.
Yeah, and then Dersman was like 18 or something.
Dersman was exactly. So the reason I don't have him higher is because Brisbane could have potentially nabbed, a Ben King or a Connor Rosie or something like that, which obviously, you put him up against Lockie Neal and whoever you get, you're going to be a winner. But that pick 6 was the most worth, it was the most valuable pick 6 in the last 10, 15 years. So that's the reason I say that. And also, Neil wasn't unfortunately able to take them to a flag yet. Last year was obviously a massive chance for them. And he obviously on the Brownlow, but he wasn't able to take them to a flag, which obviously, it's not really on his back, but he was obviously their best player and still is. So to get them to a prelim, I can't have him higher just because there are some absolute bargains next in this list. So at number 4, these are obviously bargains. It's not like player quality. Number 4, we've got Hugh Greenwood to go into the Suns for a future 3rd and future 4th round a few years ago. So I think it was Kane Corns who roasted him for, being such a, handball, tackle, whatever, not like a damaging player and all that. Kane Corns is obviously the biggest nuffy in the AFL industry, and I hope Kane hears this because you are a genuine flog. And legit. Well, congrats to your playing career. You're a magnificent player, but you know nothing. And I don't know if it's just to like get some publicity around your name, but your comments and remarks are just beyond a joke. But anyway, to get Hugh Greenwood to the Suns for a 3rd and 4th round pick, especially in a stage where no one was really going to the Suns except for opportunity. I have a feeling he's really helped from a leadership point of view, but also from a contested side point of view. They obviously got smashed in the midfield for so many years. And I'm sure he's helped with the development of, Rowell and Anderson and everything, but not to mention becoming one of the best contested players in the AFL. So I think to get him for a 3rd and 4th round pick for the Suns is just an absolute bargain. So at number 3, I've got Tom Mitchell. He was obviously a Brownlow medal winner when he came to Hawthorn. So, to bring in a Brownlow medal winner is a massive deal. They got him in for pick 14 and a later exchange of picks. Pick 14 for a Brownlow medal winner. You take that. He really is the heart and soul of their midfield. I don't know, there's a lot of debate around Tom Mitchell, and, it's obviously obvious, what I'm talking about, like how damaging he is as a player and all that. But, I saw him on the weekend. He got tagged, but when he was sort of free and everything, you just saw how much better their movement was when he was involved in the play, because he does enable that streaking play from CJ Giath, my new favourite player, or he does get that ball out to these awesome areas, and he really is a really, really good player. And I think a lot of people don't see that anymore, just because I think since his Brownlow year, he's been a bit injured and people have sort of doubted how he's gone about it, or how he plays, sorry. So I've got him in at number 3. Number 2, Jared Lyons for pick 43. One of the biggest steals ever. Obviously, Lyons is one of the best midfielders in the comp now.
Wait, which trade was that? Was that the first one or the second one?
So the second one that got him to Brisbane. Yeah. So I'm excluding free agents and stuff, by the way, here. I'm only doing trades.
Yes,
so so to get him in for pick, to get a player of Jared Lyons' caliber at pick 43 is unbelievable. He's one of the best contested players in the AFL. He's an integral part of that Brisbane midfield. If Lockie Neal goes down with injury, Lyons is their next best mid. So to get someone like that for pick 43 into your team and be the second best mid in the team that's, going for a grand final in the past few years is absolutely awesome. But the number one biggest bargain, you can't go past Jack Steele for a future second round pick. In, I'm pretty sure it was the 2016 trade period. Because I remember sitting in history class spamming Twitter because we're at St Kilda are about to sign this sort of no name from GWS, and I just wanted some action because I'm an addicted trade period follower. And to see Jack Steele, the sexiest man in the AFL, come across the Saints and be in an All Australian team in last year and just carry the midfield ever since Stephen and Armitage used to be an absolute freak for 1 year. Since those guys sort of got old and left and stuff, to see him carry this midfield is been awesome because he's up there in the best contested players in the AFL. He's added the goal scoring ability to him, and you saw on the weekend 35 touches in probably one of the most embarrassing performances from his club that these modern day supporters have seen in a while. To have 35 touches and was just unbelievable from him. He's now our captain. So to get him in for pick, a future second rounder, which GWS used on Brent Daniels, who is obviously a pretty good player, but I mean, we're taking Steele over Daniels, I think. Yeah. So, I'm sure the Giants would love to have him back because of how they're struggling in the midfield now, having lost Sheelan and all these players in previous years. Now they're struggling in the midfield. They're going to need Taranto and Tom Green and all this to step up. There's no way I can go past Jack Steele. There's some honourable mentions to some players where it's probably too early to tell, but they were from the last trade period. So Tommy Hickey, Nick Hind and Lockie Fogarty, I think are massive bargains in the first 3 games we've seen. Obviously, it's a small sample size, but I think they're honourable mentions, but because they are too early to tell, I think I'm just going to leave them in that little category. I was going to try and include the trade that secured Dougal Howard and Paddy Ryder, but after Ryder has missed, obviously, the first few games, and he's probably got like a year, if lucky, 2 left in him. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah, I can't lie. My research has failed me here. I've missed a couple key ones there, but I like your top 5. All right, I'll just run through mine fairly quickly. Number 5, it's a very rogue one, but it's Jared Witts. In 2016,
no, I 100% agree, yeah.
He went for pick 44 and pick 64. At the time, he was like a fringe Collingwood player. He didn't even play every game. But he's been, I'd say, consistently a top half ruckman for the Gold Coast Suns. Yeah. And it's probably only the last few years where the midfield is slowly starting to capitalise on his service. So he obviously went down with like an ACL injury, I think, on the weekend, which sucks for the Suns. But that was a pretty good trade. Next up, I've got Dion Prestia and pick 24 for pick 6 and a future second rounder. So if we cancel out the 24 and a future second rounder, Dion Prestia for pick 6. Yes, in a lot of cases, a pick 6 can be better than Prestia, but if you tell a club you're going to draft Dion Prestia at pick 6, you're probably taking it, and the fact that he's won 3 premierships with them, I think adds some icing on the cake. I think he was also their best and fairest in like 2019, so I think that's been a good one. Charlie Cameron for pick 12, that's my number 3, obviously one of the best small forwards in the competition, probably hasn't been as good in the last couple years as he was when he first moved over. So hopefully he can get back to his best this year. But for pick 12, I think Charlie Cameron's pretty solid. That was always, I thought, a strange one that Adelaide let him go. And then my top 2 you mentioned, Tom Mitchell at number 2. Just pretty incredible. Brought in 2 All-Australian years. Probably would have been more if he didn't break his leg or whatever he did. And then, number 1, easily, the Neefle 60 disposal beast.
Neefle specialist.
I remember he was a bit like Tom Green, sort of, in his first few years. He'd just go up and down from the 1s to the 2s. Every time you'd see on Twitter, like Jack Steele, 48 disposals, 180 Supercoach points in the Neefle. And it was always like, who is this bloke? And then he would play in the 1s and he'd do nothing. So
he barely actually played, I think, that year. I don't think he got many games.
Yeah, I think he was like a Supercoach prospect, and then he would always just play one game, get dropped for like a month, And
Yeah.
I think he only played a handful, but yeah, that's an absolute steal of a pick. Well, that's an accidental. That
Oh,
was accident. That was an accident. I realised it as soon as I said it, but yeah, whoever picked him out from St Kilda, pretty well done. I think everyone was sniffing around GWS there, but to land him for just a second rounder, future second rounder as well, it's pretty bloody good work. All right, players of the week. I'll start. Backs of the week. As usual, I'm just going off my Brownlow voting, so it does favour a few positions, but I've just got two backmen this week. And number 2, I've gone with Jordan Dawson. He picked up the 5 votes for me, which is the maximum votes if this is your first time listening in the Sydney game. He had the second tied most inside 50s for the game, which is pretty solid from halfback. Most meters gained, second most effective kicks, most intercept marks, and most score launches. So he set up a lot of good scoring opportunities for the Swannies. And then number 1, I've gone with Liam Jones. I can't lie, I saw some super coach people getting around Liam Jones, and they kept putting L Jones, and I legit took me so long to clock who L Jones is. But I remembered Liam Jones. I was thinking of Lockie Jones, but I was like, he plays for Bo Morris Cricket Club, not doesn't play in the
And
AFL.
Port Adelaide.
Yeah, I was like, did he debut or?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was confused. But yeah, he had second most inside 50s for the game, which is pretty handy. He was probably playing, I guess you could say, centre half back, so that's pretty random. But second most meters gained, second most effective kicks, most intercepts, most intercept marks, tied most contested marks on the field. So he was huge for Carlton as they basically just set it up in Frere's half for the whole day. You backs of the week, who are you looking at here?
Well, number 3, I've actually gone Daniel Rich. 28 touches, 12 in the last. So I think the whole Brisbane team lifted in the last. But Rich, I think his drive off halfback and through the ground was pivotal for them. And obviously got the goal assist to Zach Bailey in the end, which was the match winner. So but he was huge for them. Second, I've also got Liam Jones, 16 intercepts and 600 odd meters gained at 94% efficiency for Liam Jones. So he was an absolute monster for them. But number 1, becoming one of the breakout players of the last 2 years, Jordan Ridley, who had 35 disposals, 10 marks, 9 rebound 50s. It's becoming the norm for him now. I think a few people, especially when deciding on which Supercoach defender primo to pick, was sort of weighing up who to pick, and I think most avoided Ridley because he's only had that 1 year of excellence. Most people went with, the running defenders of Daniel and Short and Laird the midfielder, but whatnot. But most people sort of shied away from Ridley, didn't want to take that risk. I, for one, went Daniel over Ridley for the exact reason I explained. And obviously, at the moment, has looked like a big cock up. So, he's an absolute animal, Ridley. He's not solidly built, but he's just a machine. So, yet again, another feature in the best defenders.
Yeah, he is actually one of 2 people to poll in every single game so far. Well, the Essence played. He's not polling in other games. He's playing that well.
He's polling in other games.
Yeah, so he's winning at the moment. I think he's got 12 votes out of a possible 15. Tex is the other, but I think that'll dry up soon, where I think Ridley could legit continue this the whole season. Yes, I also did not get him in Supercoach. I picked bloody Tom Stewart, Jeremy Howe, and Caleb Daniel all over him, so shout out to those guys for disappointing me. They've legit ruined my mood this week, so whoever's in my Supercoach team, I hope they're happy with themselves. All right, midfielders. I haven't actually written down the stats for my midfielders, but number 3, I've gone with Darcy Parish. I judged him best on for Essendon against St Kilda. I've got the stats here. He had the most meters gained for the game, second most contested posies, most clearances, second most score involvements, tied first for score launches. Then in second, I had Tom Liberatore. Obviously, in that game, you legit could have picked any of the midfielders, but he was really good. Most inside 50s, which is probably not something we associate with him, and he was an absolute contested bull. Second most contested posies for the game, most clearances for the game, most score launches, and third most score involvements. And then finally, my number 1 man, someone you actually just touched on as a bargain pickup, and it was Hugh Greenwood. Surprisingly picked up the 5 votes against Adelaide in a loss, but he had the most inside 50s for the game, tied second in contested possessions, second in clearances, most pressure acts, and most tackles, which is if you look at the stats for Gold Coast every week, that's something that is basically a given. He's an absolute beast in those two stats. So, yep, he actually picked up the 5 votes for me there. Who were your mids of the week?
Well, I've sort of got a tie for the third place between Parrish and Gaff. Parrish, obviously, with the 34 touches and I think 10 score involvements. Gaff, 36 touches and 13 marks. Yes, gets a few sort of cheapies on the wing, but at the end of the day, he is a gun and has been for so many years and was back to his best on the weekend against Port. Number 2, it was very hard to go between 1 and 2, who to pick. At the end of the day, I've gone 2. I've got Cam Guthrie, who had 43 touches and was huge against the Hawks. It just offers so much to that Geelong lineup that not many people realise. He's just such a composed player that you wouldn't pick it from the way he looks. He looks just the opposite. He looks like a frantic caveman, but he's really really composed player, and he's starting to become a really damaging player for them as well. And obviously, goes under the lights because of Dangerfield and Selwood and whatnot. But number 1, Paddy Cripps, 34 touches, 11 clearances, but also 2 goals. Yes, there are a lot of sort of junk time stats against the Dockers, but at the end of the day, he looked back to his best, and a fit and firing Paddy Cripps is up there with just about the best player in the competition. So it was great to see him look like that again and finally have like a 30-plus disposal game where he also kicks a couple and just looks like a class above everyone else on the field. The games are better when Paddy Cripps is fit and firing and not when he's sort of lumbering around injured, getting 20 touches with 15 of them being handballs. It was awesome to see, and I can't wait until they have a few really close games where Paddy Cripps is having these 30 disposal games, because it's going to be an absolute spectacle.
Yeah, and he obviously shut up the haters. He was getting a lot of media scrutiny, and he also did it against his future team. So that was a good effort from Paddy Cripps. Jokes. I think that he's going to re-sign pretty soon. But anyway.
Imagine the midfield of Cripps, Chera, Sarong, Brayshaw.
5.
5, of course. Jesus.
I don't even know if that's possible under the salary cap, to be honest. But that would be pretty sick. But yeah, I think he will resign.
5 up forward.
Yeah, 5. They need help up there.
Hayden Young as well, and oh god, that's starting to be scary.
Yeah,
it's nearly as scary as Sydney.
All right, Ruck of the week. There's been a lot of talk about Ruckman this week. I'll maybe get your opinion on it with, I think, Nathan Buckley coming out and saying they don't actually matter that much or something like that, because Brodie Grundy absolutely tore up, well, I was going to say the Brisbane Ruckman, but they didn't really have any Ruckman, so the Brisbane line. And obviously they still lost. Yeah. So, but my Ruck of the week is Max Gawn. Obviously the other part of Gaundy, obviously don't have him in Supercoach, which is another reason why I'm ranked 400,000th. But yeah, he had like 12 or 13 hitouts to advantage, I think. He had the second most clearances in the game, most contested marks, most score involvements, went forward and kicked a couple goals, I also believe. So he was a big reason why they ended up getting over the Giants. So Gawney not back to his best. He has always been his best of recent times, but yeah, absolutely killed it. Do you think Ruckman matter or not really?
Yes. No, I do. I for people that say do Ruckman matter, I'd love to hear their sort of proposition for a game where there are no Ruckman. I don't know how it would begin. I don't know what would happen every few minutes when there's stoppages. I 100% think Ruckman matter. At the end of the day, it's like one position on the ground. But these players are so much more diverse to the other players on the field. I don't see how it's going to be a better game without them. With the likes of Grundy and Gawn, on your TV screen for so much of the game, because they're in and around the contest. But then you see them leaping for marks in the defensive, but also the forward 50, and then you're kicking goals and stuff. Of course, you can't say Ruckman don't matter when you go and see Nick Nat play, for example. So my Ruck of the week is Brodie Grundy. He wasn't up against much of a challenge in the ruck against Brisbane, but did get 28 touches, so nearly 30 touches for a ruckman. against an outfit, that has the likes of Neil and, McCluggage, Zorko and all that, and Jared Lyons running through there in the opposition, getting all his contested ball, as well as the Pies, Taylor Adams and Pendlebury and stuff, to get nearly 30 touches and a truckload of hitouts. 18 of his touches were contested as well. I think was huge. I think, if Zach Bailey had kicked a point at the end of the game, Brody Grundy, all the talk about him would be completely reversed, and he, would have nearly gotten the 3 votes, and everyone would be saying how much of an incredible game he had. But because Bailey kicked that goal, it all goes the other way, which is unfortunate. But 100% Ruckman matter, and you see, the fact that Ruckman have won Brownlow's, Jim Stein's example, they matter. So that's the end of the story there.
Yeah, I think it's more of a reflection on the Collingwood midfield. It's almost like they need a guy called Adam Treloar. Like, just a suggestion. But, Taylor Adams having an absolute stinker of a year so far. He is probably the biggest chopper of the footy of all time, Taylor Adams. I just look at fan footy and he's just like 20 touches, 10 clangers. It's like, I'm Taylor. But anyway, forwards of the week, as always, my algorithm absolutely dogging all forwards in the AFL. So apologies for that. He basically played midfield the whole game, but my forward of the week is actually going to be Dane Zorko. He's a forward in my Supercoach side, so I'll be considering him a forward today. But he had the most inside 50s in that game, second most meters gained, third most effective kicks, up there for tackles and pressure acts as always as well. So he was good. But obviously, I'm sure you'll talk about it, but shout outs to Taylor Walker and Mackay. I think they both picked up 2 votes in their games from my algorithm. Josh Bruce did not poll. So he can cop that. He has to stat pad.
Wow, that is a statement.
He has to stat pad elsewhere to get picked up by the algorithm. But Tex and Mackay, well done to them. But Harry Mackay, if you could kick straight, you could have had 10. So just
12.
Yeah, exactly. Just think about that one. So all right. Who are your forwards of the week?
Well, I'll give shout outs to Tom Papley and Toby Green, and Cozzy Pickett as well, and Sam Wicks as well. They were all phenomenal. But the tall forwards made it very easy for me this week. The big 3 are going to be up there. It's just a matter of what order. So at 3, I've got Harry Mackay, who did kick 7, but it was 7 goals 5. So he could have had 12, but didn't. He had 17 touches as well. He was really good. But up against a really, really undermanned Fremantle defence. I'm sure there are a lot of tall forwards in the comp that could kick bags against them. And number 2 got Tex, 24 touches from Texan, and 6 goals, including 12 score involvements. Obviously, another incredible performance from him. It's awesome to see someone like him like tearing the competition apart. No one would have picked it, not even the Kiss of Death from The Age or Herald Sun newspaper. I don't know if you follow that. It's basically a tipster that tips all the wrong teams every week. When they do the footy tips with all the celebrities, the Kiss of Death is at the bottom with that Scream mask from the movies. Not even he would have predicted Texan to come out and fire the way he's doing this year. So credit to him. He's having an incredible year. But at number 1, unfortunately, I got the ex-Saint Josh Bruce, who, yes, it's against North Melbourne, but, 10's 10, let's be real. That's, it's nearly 3 goals a quarter. And in a game of AFL, when you've also got Norton, who's a spearhead and attack alongside you, to kick 10's an incredible effort. Also got plenty of touches in the ball. So he was awesome, showed his composure and was kicking his 10th. He knew that was going to be his last chance to get it. So proved that he can handle moments under pressure. If only he could have done that when he played for us, a bag of 10 would have been handy. But he did, to be fair, in his time, he did show he had the capability to do so. He kicked a few bags of 5 and I think 6, maybe in his first couple of games he actually did playing forward. So got to give it to the big 3 for the forwards of the week.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. I'll be honest, I didn't watch the whole game, but I don't know how Fogarty, if you just look at his stats, it didn't even look like he had that big of a game, but everyone was raving about it, and he got 160, 70 Supercoach points, so it must have had a lot of score assists and stuff like that, but well done to him.
I think Carlton fans are just so they've been ranting rave about Walsh and Cripps for 24 months, and they need someone else to rant and rave about. Exactly. So as soon as someone popped up and had the first good game of career, they're all over him like a 12-inch at an orgy, like straight onto him. So credit to him. But yeah.
Oh no! All right, rookie of the week. I don't know if I want to say this player's name now after that call from you, but I've actually gone back to back with Mr. Cumming, Isaac Cumming. I have to say, no rookie actually polled in my Brownlow votes this week. So I had to look at who just missed out on the votes, and there are a couple contenders come to mind. Warner, I think Giath came close. Shout out to CJ.
Yeah.
They've got some exciting players off halfback.
Yeah.
But I'm going with my man Isaac Cumming again. He looks like he's going to rack up in my Brownlow points. He's just playing that halfback role that it seems to love giving votes to. He had the most rebound 50s in the game, tied most contested possessions, which is pretty weird for a halfback. And he had the second most intercepts. So he's playing that fun role that I love Supercoach players who play that halfback intercept type. Yes, it's probably helping his cause that they're getting smashed at the moment because he's getting a lot of it. But that contested possession stat as well, very impressive. So yeah, Isaac Cumming back-to-back weeks. He looks well and truly on his way to winning my Rookie of the Year. How about you though?
Three-way tie. Well, I've got one winner, but three names I'm going to mention. CJ Jaff. He's, him and Rankin and Rowell have become probably my three favourite players in the comp. Just because he was unbelievable when he got it off halfback. I became a Hawthorn supporter for that game.
Yeah, me too, actually. Yeah.
I was thinking I've hated Hawthorn for 20 years, and I started, I would go for them and barrack for them and come on when they, Mitch Lewis clunked a big one the last quarter. I thought, shit, what am I doing? Like, I don't support Hawthorn. I hate them. But the sort of energy that CJ Jack gives to their team, and just, I don't know if you watched him, but he would get the ball and run, and like no one could stop him. Like,
He's just so fast. It's actually ridiculous.
Yeah, it was. I don't know. I think he got He got like a 50-meter penalty, and I think it was against Tomahawk. So CJ Jaff he started to run with it to run. He couldn't be tackled because the ump was a score on the ground. But then he just started to go. He just kept going and going and going, and he could have kept on going for another 50 meters and had a shot at goal. I think he kicked it to about 5 meters out, and I don't think it eventuated into much, or might have done, but it wasn't a goal. But that could have been a goal of the year nearly. So. I'm going to really start to watch Hawthorn really closely now because of CJ Jaff and how awesome he's becoming off halfback. I've also got Chad Warner in there from the Swans, 20 touches, 2 goals, 1. Got the Rising Star nomination, obviously. Wouldn't have picked it after last year, given he had, I think he played 1 or 2 games, but just looks really out of place. This year, he's completely turned it around. Looks like a new player. He's been awesome for it. But number 1, Sam Wicks. 21 touches, 13 marks, 3 goals, 2. And he's not a key forward. He's played less than 10 games, and he's like, 180 odd.
Jeez, that's crazy.
He's not even like a medium-sized forward. He's like a pressure forward. So to have those stats against Richmond at the G in front of the Tiger Land home crowd, being literally the Swans' main target up forward, and that's such a young forward line without Buddy Franklin, against like some of the best defenders in the competition, was unreal. So it's a no-brainer for me. Definitely Sam Wicks up there. Can't wait to see how long these Swans rookies keep up this streak for. I hope it's for the whole season because these guys are unbelievable. And credit to whoever's recruited them and developed them because they are looking to be some genuinely just, potential to be elite players in the AFL. And that's no overstatement or anything. That's just pure fact.
Yeah, I can't get over the similarities between the Sydney team and the Port team. It's reminding me so much of when Butters, Rosie and Dursman came into the team. They just look completely different, whole new energy about them. Their experienced players seem pretty similar. The only difference is maybe if Buddy comes back and starts kicking goals like Charlie Dixon has been, all of a sudden they could be just like Port, a premiership contender. But yeah, very impressive, the amount of Sydney rookies who are putting on clinics at the moment. All right, a bit of a long one today, but we love it. All right, week 4 preview time. And I mentioned it before. This was some of the hardest stuff I've ever done. Shout out to me, though. I got both my upsets right last week. I said West Coast to beat Port and Brisbane to beat Collingwood. So
Oh yes,
yes,
that's
I'm
right.
very happy about that. But I don't think I tipped that well in general, though. I don't think anyone did actually. To be fair, I don't think anyone tipped Sydney or Essendon. But speaking of those two teams, that's my sure bet of this week. I went through each game and I thought, who am I confident with? And this is probably the only match that I'm more than 70% confident with. I'm not 100% confident. Don't get me wrong, but Sydney are in great form. Buddy and Rowbottom are predicted to come back into that lineup. It's at Sydney. Essendon, they got their big win that probably no one was expecting. They're probably going to be on a bit of a come down from last week. And yeah, hopefully Sydney can just extend their run to 4-0 because yeah, I just didn't really know what other game to pick basically. So that's my sure bet of this week. Who are you going with?
Well, I've got two. I'll for the sake of variety, I won't go to Sydney Essendon. I'll go two others. I've got the. I'm always doing this because I want to be proven wrong, and given my history this year with tipping so far, it's a good chance I get proven wrong. I've got the Eagles against the Saints. I think that attack that the Eagles have is so strong. I'm not sure how we're going to contain the likes of Kennedy, Ryan and Darling and Oscar Allen, especially, and also their midfield, who we got obliterated by an Essendon midfield. So I'm not sure how we're going to handle Tim Kelly and Andrew Gaff and so on. Or the Pies against GWS. I'm not as confident on that one because um, yeah, I'm not as confident on that one. I've got that in probably third behind the two we've mentioned. But just given the form that GWS are in, it's still so hard to buy into the fact that they are just really not good. but and I don't see the Pies blowing them away. But if they do blow them away, it will be partly because GWS just won't score. So I've got them in at 3. So hopefully Toby Green can do something like kick 6 and have 25, because that's the only way I see them winning the game.
Yeah, I tell you what, I know GWS aren't great, but the bookies bloody love Collingwood. They were the
Yeah.
favourites against Brisbane last week, and they're like $1.20 against GWS. But yeah, I get that they are one of the most likely teams to win this week. Upset of the week, could have picked any of them, but
This could be any game.
I'm
Yeah.
going with Gold Coast to beat Carlton. I think that's the most likely of the underdogs to get up. They are only $2 underdogs, so it's not an outrageous claim by me. Carlton looked good against Freo, but Freo were without 6 or 7 best 22 players. They weren't great in the first 2 rounds either. Yes, they did play Richmond and Collingwood, who I don't know if Collingwood are actually that good though. And it is at the Gold Coast, which is another thing in Gold Coast favour. And I just think the Gold Coast really need to step up. They probably were very surprised to lose to Adelaide last week. I reckon they would have been expecting to come away with the points. So I reckon this is the week where they really need to step up and have a bit of a statement win. And I think they need to put Carlton to the sword and prove that they're still in top 8 contention. Because if they lose this week, then all of a sudden they're on the serious back foot like St Kilda are. So yeah, I reckon Gold Coast will beat Carlton if I had to pick an upset this week. Who do you like here? Like we said, could basically be anyone, but who do you think's most likely to get up?
First of all, I hope otherwise because I kind of have money on Carlton, 2-leg multi with the Eagles,
All
to
right.
essentially make my money back for a few lost bets over the past day or two. So fingers crossed the Blues actually get up there. I think they will. I think the loss of Jared Whitson, all that
That's actually true.
hurts
Yeah,
them.
that's true.
Yeah,
Chris Burgess
I
in the
think
ruck.
Yeah, exactly. I think big H Mackay up forward can hopefully kick a few. I think Paddy Cripps and Sammy Walsh will just have it on a string,
That's true.
hopefully.
That's true.
And Adam Sard on his own deck, on his own, old deck, can stream through the back line. But I'm surprised at these odds. Richmond is
Yeah, what the
$2.35
hell is that
underdogs.
about? Like, that's outrageous.
I'm not sure if the footy betting community or anyone suffers from sort of short term memory loss or whatever, but Richmond don't ever have 2 bad performances in a row. I think there was some weird quirky stat where Richmond have lost like their last 3 round 3 games by like over 5 goals or something like that. Like last year was against Hawthorn, this year was Sydney, and I think 2 years ago it was to someone else by like nearly 50 points. I think it was. And they always back it up. it's like after 1 week, we've all suddenly jumped off Richmond bandwagon. We saw how poor Port were on the weekend. And yes, I've said I'm a big believer of this massive home crowd advantage, especially the Adelaide teams at Adelaide Oval. But Richmond had this guy, I don't know if you've heard of him, called Dustin Martin, who has the capability, yes or no?
Rings a bell.
Who has the capability to, kick 5 and have 20 or 30. And I think this week he's going to do that. He was quiet in the Sydney game. Looked like he was jogging a fair bit of the game. Didn't work massively defensively. I reckon they would have gotten a bit of a talking to from Hardwick because it obviously was nowhere near the same extent as the Saints game, but I think they did lack a bit of sort of effort at times. There wasn't as much work in the defensive 50 from their mids and actually their defenders at times sort of manning up and stuff. I think that's the reason why there were a lot of marks from their Sydney's forwards and just players going into the forward line, like Wicks, for example. I think Tom Hickey had a few easy ones. But I still reckon that these $2.35 odds for Richmond are just very disrespectful to the quality of side they are. They did beat Port in a prelim last year at the ground, similar conditions. The lineups haven't really changed at all. So I think these $2.35 odds are great because, you've got Dusty Martin, you've got Rewalt and Lynch as a two-pronged attack. Lynch hasn't done much this year, so no better time to fire up than now. And Port are obviously pretty reliant on Dixon when they go forward. Georgiades and Marshall is still young, good, but still young. And I think it's going to be a great contest. Don't get me wrong, but the odds should be a lot closer than that, I believe, because both teams have poor performances on the weekend. And if it was any other team, I'd agree with these odds, like a Brisbane or even Geelong, if they had to travel to Adelaide and play Port in front of Adelaide Oval. But given it's Richmond, given they don't ever have two bad performances in a row because of the confidence that team has in its playing group and its just play style, I definitely think that they're going to come out firing and probably win that game.
Yeah.
Sorry, Pilch.
Yeah, rest in peace to Pilch. He'll be back with us next week. But actually, I don't know. He might be too shattered about their loss to Richmond to come on the podcast. Maybe that's why he's not here. No, he's actually away.
Why is he not
here? No, he's away at his holiday house. But we don't have to say that's the real reason. We can put it on the West Coast loss. But yeah, I don't know. Name is another situation where a 3-time premier team in the last 4 years coming up against an opponent who just had their pants pulled down on in prime time are coming in at those odds. So yeah, I don't know what's that about. But anyway, all right, game spreads. You can basically just pick any one here. But I'm going to point out some of my favourites, just like you mentioned. Richmond in head-to-head are great odds, but Richmond at plus 8.5. Yes, it's obviously $1.90 odds, but to get that 8-point buffer, I think that's outstanding. Other ones I like so Geelong versus Melbourne. Not sure who's going to win it, but you'd have to think Geelong, even though they're not playing well at the moment. So they are only 4.5 point favourites, so less than a goal margin of victory, pretty rare. So I like Geelong in that one. If you think St Kilda have just had a few blips in the radar, they do have a 17.5 handicap, so could back them in there. But yeah, other ones I like, GWS at plus 25.5. Yes, they've suffered a lot of injuries, but most of their games have been fairly close, even though they have been outplayed in most of them. So that's a pretty big margin, and also Collingwood aren't that great, I don't reckon. I think North could bounce back against Adelaide, so plus 20.5 there. I think that's also another spicy one. Any other ones that interest you?
Oh, I think this Eagles at less 17.5
is like that way. Interesting.
Yeah, unfortunately. It could just be me wanting to be proven wrong. But this less 17.5 looks very tasty. I think if the Eagles are going to win, it's going to be convincingly. It's going to be by 5+ goals. So I think this line is at least a couple of goals under what it should be. So I think the likes of Darling and Allen and Kennedy and Ryan, I think they're going to kick. Let's make a prediction. I reckon they'll kick 12 goals between them, unfortunately.
And it's going to be tough to win if that happens.
Yeah, exactly. I hate to say that. I hate to say that, but I think it's going to be 12 goals between them. I'd love to be proven wrong, and I'm almost saying this because I want to be proven wrong, because I haven't barely got a prediction right this year. So hopefully I can stay consistent with that, and we can come out and fire and restrict them, and then we've got our mojo back. We prove all that doubters and haters like myself wrong. But yeah, I'm going to jump on that. Or I might not jump on it, but I'm going to watch that less 17.5 line.
How many does Tex kick against North?
Oh, it's a big question this week, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jeez. Out of all, the funny thing is, he's kicked, what is it, like 2 bags of 5 and a bag of 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
So
like that.
I think it might be 2 bags of 6 and a bag of 5. But the funny thing is, out of the 4 games, this is the easiest for him to kick the bag in. So I think it's going to be. Well, I think you can almost lock in 3 minimum. I think it's just going to be another 6, and then someone like another casual 6, and then someone like McAdam or something's going to kick 4 as well.
I actually love McAdam.
I tell you what, I had him for an any time on the weekend, and he was so frustrating because he didn't see it for the first quarter and a half, and then he finally took a great mark on the boundary 45 out and slotted. I thought, thank God, but I'm never putting him in another multi again because. As much as he won it and he kicked 2 goals, he just doesn't find the footy that much at all. So he gets to the forward 50. I'm just screaming, where the hell are you, McAdam? And there was a time he found himself in the back line. I was pulling my hair out, but he got it done before halftime. So, yeah, I think Tex in for 5 or 6.
Yeah,
pretty standard, but yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting.
Could very well be 10.
Another smoky we haven't touched on too much. We talked about CJ Giath, but Hawthorn. I reckon they're a real good chance against Freo, and especially with the game spread, they're given 10.5 points. I just don't think Hawthorn will keep losing. So I think there's a win around the corner, and it's just a matter of time. Freo is tough, and Fife's probably back, but they've still got a lot of backline injuries. Hawthorn looked good against Geelong, especially in that second half. So I reckon Hawthorn with the spreads, definitely very interesting. Just before we go, Supercoach update from yourself. Who are you looking at bringing in this week? Because we were just talking about Tex. I'm tempted to jump on him late just because I reckon he's going to kick another bag. But who are you looking at bringing in for Supercoach this week?
Oh, if you want to get Tex, it has to be this week. So
yeah,
I don't know. I can't. I always want to make so many changes to my team, but it gets to close to finals and I've got 5 trades left. I'm just like, I should have saved those stupid trades I made at the start of the year. So I'm trying my best, but I am forced into making a trade because I've got Hayden Young. So I don't have, none of my rookies on the bench are expensive enough to downgrade to another rookie to then upgrade Young. And I'm not downgrading any of the rookies on my field. I've seen a few people, jump off Campbell or whatever, but all these guys still have like 100 odd K to make or more in like Errol Gordon's case, for example. So I'm just going to go with the one. I'm actually going to go him down to Heath Chapman, who, given the plethora of injuries in the Dockers' defence, he's probably going to get a lot of game time. He had a pretty good game on the weekend. So hopefully he's got very, very good job security. So unfortunately, he's going to have to sit at D6 for me. Hopefully Tom Highmore can come back because I'm not sure how long Jacob Kajitsky is going to last. But I'm going to have Heath Chapman at D6. That gives me 160K to use in maybe a week or 2 time. I can upgrade a Tom Phillips to a Sam Walsh or something, but I'm just not going to burn that trade just because I've got faith in Tommy Phillips that he can find a bit of form and maybe still finish a top 6 forward. So I'm just going to go the one trade of just going Young down to Chapman, hope he can stay in the team for long enough so that I can eventually upgrade him. But yeah, going to bank me 160 and hope that I just remain injury free now. What about yourself? The big Janus.
I think I'm going to have to cop getting one of the Primo Rucks this week. I think they both had bad performances round 1, so that means they dropped in price, both of them. But obviously that goes out of the break-even calculations now, so they're both going to be looking to rise from here. So I think it's more Grundy. I think Gawn's still probably a little bit too expensive because I'll just have to go from a rookie to him and I'd waste my 600K in the bank. But think I'll be bringing in Grundy this week and just biting the bullet. Yes, it sucked.
He's got Matt Flynn as well.
Yeah,
This week,
exactly.
Grundy.
So
yeah.
yeah, I think I'm just gonna have to do that. I don't want to; it's kind of boring, but I'd rather do like 2 mini upgrades and fix some of my primos that have been shit. But yeah, I think I've just got to cop that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. At the moment, everything I'm doing is failing, so we'll see. But yeah, thanks for joining me today, bro. Very long one, but I can't lie, I've enjoyed
Oh,
it
mate. I
almost
loved
more
it.
than
Yeah.
all the others. Sorry, Pilch, but I'm sure Pilch will be back next week. Potentially
Yeah.
try and do one in person. I know we do say that most weeks, but it will happen. I did one in person with my dad in the NRL, so I do follow up on some promises. But yeah, very exciting week of AFL to come. So enjoy that. I'm looking forward to it. And yeah, thanks for listening and watching, and cheers. See you next time.